In today's video, we have what billionaire, legendary investor in commodities and metals, Eric Sprott, said one of the one or two top silver analysts in the world. And today, that is our guest, David Morgan. He is the creator of the Morgan Report, fantastic newsletter breaking down commodities, macro environment, gold, silver, mining stocks. We'll link that right there down below in the description for you to check that out. We're going to be talking about gold, silver. We're going to be talking about the precarious economic and geopolitical situation we find ourselves in, and not only how to make sense of it, but what you can do about it. So make sure you hit the like button on this video, send it out into the YouTube universe. Shout out to our sponsor today, Vizsla Silver, one of our favorite silver and gold mining stocks. So thank you, Vizsla Silver, for being today's sponsor. And David, it's good to see you.
Well, Jake, it's good to see you. It's been a while. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's getting interesting, you know.
It is.
But how do you make sense of everything? I mean, from the Federal Reserve saying inflation 7.5%, German producer price index 25%, the highest since 1949. Now you got like war conversation. We've had massive bank freezes in Canada. Then you've got regulators asking crypto exchanges to freeze every single Russian account, just ordinary citizens. It's getting quite interesting.
Yeah, underused or overused word. Interesting. I agree with you, Jake. It's a lot to break down. So let me just delve a little bit into my thought process. You know, I'm a pretty big fan of Ayn Rand, although she seemed to be agnostic or maybe even atheist. I'm certainly not that. But I liked a lot of what she taught. And one of the things was check your premises. So how do you break this down to where it makes any kind of sense at all and connect the dots? And the answer is I'm not certain, but I've been at it a long time. And so the old adage that follow the money is a good place to start. And when you follow the money and then you look at the war side, I think the gentleman's name is Vieira. One of your commenters can correct me. He's in Hawaii, to my recollection, and he wrote a documentary, and it's a film now called All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. So if you start with the premise that all wars are bankers' wars, and we follow the money, then we might get a little bit of depth or at least challenges to our thinking. So if you look at Ukraine, if you're objective at all, what you're going to determine is that there's some very interesting things going on there. One is that you have some very strong political affiliations that many tie to the DS, such as Pelosi has got a relative, let's say, that's working for Ukraine's gas company, John Kerry, of course, Hunter Biden, and there's one other one I'm forgetting at the time. Then we know objectively that it's a huge money laundering place. We also know it was a major contributor to the Clinton Foundation. So if you just look at the money aspect, there's a lot of stuff going on in Ukraine that brings to the question, what the hell is really going on here? And I'll leave that open question to your audience. But obviously, there's more to the story than Russia bad, Russia bad, Russia bad, which is what you get from the mainstream. You don't have the ability to think things through or question what you presented. So going further, the contention is from the non-US press and the non-Anglo-American alliance, which means the BBC or anything coming out of the UK. And you look at more objective sources of news, what you will determine, I would say determine, what you will question is how much real warfare is going on and what's really happening. And it seems as if the Russians are taking out a very strategic methodology that's surgical in nature. What do I mean by that? That they're basically presenting to the Ukrainian people the ability to choose their own destiny. If you identify with Russia and you're in these locations, you can, be Russian, so to speak, and have the I'll call it citizenship, not their words of a Russian. And if you're in other parts of Ukraine, you can determine for yourself, your government, your governmental leaders. Now, that doesn't get to the mainstream press at all. And I am extending what I've read a little bit, but I'm giving the idea that it's much different than Russia bad, nuclear war, duck and hide, it's all over. So I do think that the deep state might have gone too far. And why do I say that? Unintended consequences. Sure, you shut off the SWIFT system, and yes, that's going to hurt Russia, and yes, the ruble fell, and yes, I saw like the ETF for Russia from Van Eck is very good. I mean, it went from like $30 to $10 in I don't know, a matter of a week or two, or thereabouts. And the market is overreacting, in my view. The point is that just because you took care of Russia, you might have shot yourself in the foot, because trade has to go both ways. And Russia, on a per capita basis, is probably one of the strongest economies going. They've got the most important commodity of all, and that's energy, basically in oil and gas. And then they've got what's the bankers, stalwart, the money of last resort, gold. And gold on a per capita basis. So, oil going up in price, does that hurt Russia? No. Gold going up in price, does that hurt Russia? No. Ruble going down. Well, ruble's a fiat currency just like any other. It can move all over the place. And I think it could be temporary. I do think this could, backfire. And all of a sudden, and when the SWIFT system is turned off, all that is a methodology to make trade simple. But I could trade with you with an email. All I have to do is, communicate. Hey, Jake, I want that book that you have. I'm going to give you 2 ounces of silver. Is that acceptable? Yep, 2 ounces for my book. Send you an email. I send you the silver, you send me the book. I mean, I know that's a corny example, but it outlines, it could be wheat, it could be natural gas, it could be anything. So it's not like they've turned off trade or they've turned off communication. They haven't. However, if this thing backfires enough, and I know this is going to sound doom and gloomy, so, caution. If you don't like me, turn off the video now. I say possibility, listen to my words carefully, not probability, that if things start going really downhill fast, there is what we've all heard again and again and again, and that would be a cyber warfare or cyber attack, which might take down like the whole system or great parts of the system to provide, let's say, a buffer so that the powers that want to be the parasitical system that sucks the life energy and monetary savings out of most of the population has a chance to come up with plan B, C, or D. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think it's behooving on me to state what you ask. And obviously, I'm going to go deep down a rabbit hole you've known for a lot of years. You read my report, you're a paid member. So my thinking is beyond the surface level. So there it is, as best as I can lay it out. Follow the money. There's a lot of corruption in Ukraine. Maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe it's just a disguise. And of course, the fake, false, phony news that we all get, I wouldn't say disregard it totally. I just say disregard it at 100% level.
All right. So one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot is energy crisis, and then how that influences food shortages or food crisis. And you've been talking about that, off air with me since before the lockdown started, but really started, focusing a lot on it then. And one of the unattended or intentional consequences of what occurs is obviously going to be even higher energy prices and an even greater energy crisis, and even greater food inflation, and product inflation in general. What's your thoughts on that, and where do you think that goes from here?
Yeah, just for the record, I mean, I talked about food shortages, food crisis way before hardly anyone was even mentioned. So I want that on the record. I don't really do it that much anymore because, I was kind of ahead of the curve years ago, and particularly about 2 years back, So where do I think it's going? Well, you outlined it. I'll just, add to what you said, Jake. Um, Without energy, nothing happens. Petroleum is critical for food for many reasons, not just to, till the fields and plant the seeds and all that. It's also petrochemicals are used to throw fertilizer into these sponges, the soil that has no nutrients in it at all. So you have to spray them in. And then once you've accomplished the nutrition required to grow food, then you plant and then you harvest, and everything takes energy. And so there's a direct correlation between oil and the precious metals. And I know Pierre Lassonde, who's a stalwart in the industry. I mean, if you're in the mining sector at all, you know who Pierre Lassonde is. And he just did an interview with Kitco, and he talked about oil going to 200 a barrel and gold going to, I think, 2,400. Well, he's basically saying oil's going to double and gold's going to go up substantially. I would say if oil doubled, gold could double. No one knows. I'm not saying I know more than him or less. I'm just saying that no one knows. But what I do know is there's a correlation. And there's so many vectors there. Maybe you want to just hit me with another question or two. Is that a satisfactory answer for you?
Yeah. So as gold correlates to this type of environment, and then replaying upon the past, historically, when you see oil make these types of moves, or you have these types of energy inflation or energy crisis, and then war, what role does gold historically play in an environment like this, and why, if oil goes to $200 a barrel, would you expect gold to follow?
Well, I expect gold to follow oil just because of history. So I'm just going by facts, pretty well known facts that are correlated. As far as the deeper part of the question, it gives you instant liquidity. I mean, there is no counterparty risk with gold. And this is something that few people even understand what that means. But if you are in Ukraine, for an example, and you don't like what's happening and you want to leave, and it becomes much more difficult to leave, you have some gold. The old adage is true, pay off the border guards with gold and feed your family with silver. So it does give you options. Or let's say you've got a pretty good bank account in Russia and you want to leave there. I mean, you could convert it to gold, especially now with some of these cryptocurrencies that are backed by gold, and just take your wallet across border and then go to a different jurisdiction and then recover your gold physically. So actually, we had that happen with the program I'm with, a gentleman from Australia who had a pretty good sized net worth. And we worked with him directly, and he was able to accomplish what I just said. I do think we're going to see more and more of a move to the metals because of what it does in these very trying times when governments are failing. I mean, what's happening in Ukraine, I mean, there's so many things we can talk about, but if you sum it up in one thing, it's failure of government. I mean, their government is failing right as we speak. And is it going to be, as I outlined, where certain parts of it will be Russian and other parts Ukrainian? I mean, I know that Zelensky, or however you say it, went to the EU and said, I want a fast track to become a member of the European Union. I'm aware of that. There's a lot of stuff. Another thing I wanted to say at the beginning that I forgot was not only follow the money. The other premise I like to use is that very little happens in politics by accident. So if you take that premise and you look at, well, maybe, there's this contingency of the alt media that, we're watching a movie. I don't buy into that too much, but I do buy into there is some real false flags and false news out there across the board. And so very little happens by accident in politics. That begs the question, okay, well, how much of this is planned or a screenplay or whatever, and how much is really real? And I think the real part's what I've already outlined. I'll just briefly touch it again, and that's follow the money and what's going on in the financial system. I mean, basically, this is a banker's war near the end of it, where all fiat fails, and the powers that be that have run this system for so long are knowing that it fails. They know from the beginning it fails. They just have to have a method for everybody to stay under their control when they move to another system, which is what the reset's really all about. And that will be most likely a central bank digital currency. And that's, I think, the plan. But it hasn't been manifest totally yet outside of China, which is not in total in China, but it's, I forget the number, I think it's 400,000 Chinese, which is about 10 times, or 400 million Chinese, sorry. 400 million Chinese. So they've got 1.4 billion population. So not even about a third or so. Anyway, Jake, back to you. I started to get off track a bit.
Well, I want to go in a minute to what is the new system. I've been doing a lot of research just into not only central bank digital currencies, but this whole digitization of everything, right? You and I have talked about it a lot. And then you can see how, whether it's Canadian bank freezes, whether it's calls to, freeze ordinary citizens' bank account just because they happen to live in a certain country, even if they have nothing to do with politics. You can see how, if it's streamlined into a centralized digital system, how easy it is to just shut things off. And I was doing some research a little bit more into it, and Mikhailo Fedorov, he's Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation. He's one of the World Economic Forum's young leaders. I forget what their term is, young presidents or young leaders. And he presented at the World Economic Forum. Here's one of his quotes from one of his recent speeches at the World Economic Forum, and I quote, "When we allow a person to register a business in 3 clicks, when we allow them to pay their taxes in 2 clicks, no matter how skeptical a person is about technology, they will have to start using the services." His most important goal is, quote, the state in a smartphone, which aims by 2024 to have 100% of all government services available online, with 20% of services automatically without any intervention. And that's shocking. Of course, we've all seen the huge lines, in whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in Moscow. I mean, specifically in Russia, where Apple Pay and Google Pay has shut off just ordinary citizens. People have nothing to do with the government. They've shut off their access to money. And if we go back to, well, who knows what this is all about, but let's play hypothetical in a problem reaction solution formula. What is the solution that is proposed out of this? And how does it tie in, do you think, with this move towards a central digitalization of all things, currency, finance, bank accounts, medical, et cetera?
Yeah, well, let's try to break that down. First of all, good work on your study. So the way I see it, it's pretty much what you outlined. And what really irks me about what you said is this gentleman that says, "We allow you pay your taxes in 2 clicks. We allow you." So who gave them the right to control all of our moves? I mean, if you believe what I believe, and many of the founders believe, that our rights are not given from the state or from man, or God, our rights are given by God. And the way it was actually set up is our God-given rights were constitutionally secured. The Constitution was a document for the people to secure their rights that they were given from God, or natural rights. So now it's gone to what you say, the state has become God. And that's what this war is about. I think that could be, in my view, it's possible that this war is about good and evil, control and non-control, freedom or not. And there's a lot on the line here. So yeah, they're going to be, the goal is obvious, as you know, being a paid member, what I've written for many months, and I don't hit the same topic every editorial, but going back, it's what I've said on many of these interviews, that the central banks want complete control. They want to not only know what you're buying, where you're buying it, and all that, they'll also attach a carbon footprint to it. So you're only going to be allowed so much, and everything will be tied to your DNA. It'll be absolutely positively you. In other words, you are your ID now. So whether or not you have an implant or not with your smartphone or the technology, it will be obvious that you are only you medically at the grocery store, when you go through an airport, when you take a bus ride, and then of course your smart refrigerator will be telling the Internet of Things that you didn't drink as much milk as you bought. So next time you go to the store, you're only allowed to buy this amount. I mean, it's going to get absolutely insane the way they want it to be. So there's the Great Reset. Many will be on UBI, Universal Basic Income. There'll be a credit score tied to it. Everything that you do, think, and say will be reported. You'll either be in line with the power structure and get maybe added bonuses, or be able to eat meat one time more often per month, or whatever they come up with as a reward for being obedient, or you will, be possibly shut off, as you've already outlined several times in our discussion. So if you go one step further, if it's a great reset, then what's the opposite? And that's the great reject. And the great reject, again, could be in the balance right now with what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, if what I'll call the good side is able to take power away, or at least question the current banking system, where the CIPS, which is China's version of SWIFT, which Russia's adopted, to my understanding, are able to, let's say, have a system that circumvents the Anglo-American Empire, and it works. There could be a battle for, how payments are structured in the future. I don't know. There's a lot at stake. So I know what they want. So the reject could be in a couple ways. One, it could be at the top level that I just outlined, and no one knows the outcome yet. At least I don't think anyone does. And then there's at the local level, which is the great reject, which means you just don't opt in for government. You basically opt out, which there's ways to do it. In fact, I'll be doing a lecture with, I think it's Russell, it's colon Russell J Gould. And he's a gentleman that's brought to forth the claim of the life, and talks about the birth certificate and how you're chattel for the bankers and all that. So I digress to come back. There's ways to get out of the system and be your own human, and then you're on your own. And of course, there are others that are like-minded, which means you could be in a location that doesn't have nearly the political structure that we have in the West and in Europe. And you could be growing your own food, making your own community, raising your own animals, having your kids play on the beach. In other words, being away from this whole digital world. And of course, it's a much different life. It's a much more demanding life as far as physicality and goodies. You're not going to have the goodies, all the electronic doodads and gadgets. You might still have your phone, I don't know, but the reject could entail electronic free, more or less, meaning you might have a generator for electricity to put, a DVD in and play it for the community or something like that. But you could, and probably most likely would be exempted from the cellular, system. And there's been dystopian movies that show that kind of thing. I mean, am I being a real wacko? And the answer is no, I'm not. The real question for 99% of the population is they will gladly adhere to the powers that want to be and take the system as it's delivered, so they can pay their taxes in 2 clicks and get their business because we say so in 3 clicks. But there will be a pushback. There always is. And is it going to be at the top level that we've outlined here, the whole discussion? And if that fails, then it will have to be at the local level. And it could be at the state level. I mean, it doesn't just happen very easily. I mean, if you look at Mao and how many people were killed, Pol Pot, how many people were killed, you go into the Middle East in times past, how many people were killed. Basically, it's our way or the highway. And that means either you adhere to the new system the way we define it as your masters, or you die. And I know that sounds harsh, and I know it sounds maybe exaggerating, but it's not. I am not embellishing it whatsoever. It's true that the resistors, and one thing that really bothers me, and I want to get this off my chest, Jake, and I'll give it back to you, is all of these wannabes or minions that think they're on the right side, they're with the powers that be, and they're going to help them and all this. They're the first that get executed. They're the ones that are called useful idiots. And they think because of their political status, or they're working with one of these powerful people, or they're doing what they're told and obeying just without question, that they are exempt from having, issues with getting food or any of that stuff. They are being used all the way to the end, and they're disposable, just for accomplishing the goal of we are in charge, the state runs, God's gone, and life goes on the way we tell you it's going to go on. So it's very, very dystopian. Is that the way it's going to come out? No, it'll be something different than either you or I could conjure up right now, but that's the direction.
On that subject of the state's God, I was watching a video the other day of one of the head futurist scientists for the World Economic Forum. He's an Israeli scientist, and I'm not even going to try to say his name. But in this World Economic Forum presentation, he says that we have to usher in an age where we don't live with God in the clouds. We live with the cloud of Microsoft and the cloud of IBM. That's an exact quote that he says. And I burst out laughing when I watched it, because I was like, how do you become that insane? But I digress. What I want to bring it to is, you've talked a lot for a long time about leaving the system, leaving the financial system. That's why you've talked a lot about metals for so long. And it's interesting to see that theme really surfacing in a lot of ways, whether it's Canadian bank freezes, whether it's an ordinary citizen in Russia that has nothing to do with the Russian government that can't access their money, whether it's, the social credit score type of system in China. You had the My Pillow guy get debanked. You're seeing this theme of not only a growing movement by powers to essentially take their own right to their own capital, but you're seeing it being more normalized. And one of the things that's come about from it, I guess two things, is one, it's, if you say, go back to the beginning where you said they kind of overplayed their hand, all of this movement has actually woke a lot of people up.
Yes.
I saw a speech by Jordan Peterson in Canada, where he said he was told by a high-level Canadian military officer to get all of his money out of the banks, and this was before they retracted the Emergency Act. But he said it's a lot worse than you think. Get all your money out of the bank if you have any sense. So what's happening is, and Jordan Peterson is someone who actually, surprisingly, has a lot more trust in institutions and states especially than I would have thought that he would have had. And so you have someone that, has a lot of interesting things to say, but at the end of the day says, essentially, we have to have trust in institutions. Then all of this overplaying of hand is having him make a video saying, get your money out of the system. So you're seeing this big move where people are moving into Bitcoin, people are moving into gold that wouldn't ordinarily do it. And they're probably not doing it from an investment perspective. They're doing it from a perspective of trying to find a way to preserve their own currency and their own savings. Then when you couple that with what I stated from the head digital officer, his official title is Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation. He's on the World Economic Forum's Young Leaders, Mikhailo Fedorov, talking about this system that will 20% of it's going to be automatic. So you enter this bizarre situation. So let's talk a little bit about that. One, the awakening of people that are moving their capital outside of the system for preservation, but two, this theme that you've been talking for a long time about, which is essentially leaving the financial system. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I got to think that I don't know what the word would be, but it's got to be a little bit spooky or awing to someone like you who's been talking about this, a leader in this for so long, and now you're really seeing it play out on the global stage?
Yeah, well, a few comments. One, just kind of a cursory comment, and I've said that the next move in the precious metals will be fear driven, and nothing drives a market more than fear. Greed can drive a market. I mean, you can look at Bitcoin. I'll call it a greed driven market. You can agree or disagree. It's just my opinion, people. But fear, that's when Jordan Peterson comes on and says, I'm getting my money out of the banking system. And I'm a well known Canadian. It's philosopher king that a lot of people adhere to because I speak the truth and I speak truth to power. And so that man carries a lot of weight with a lot of people, not necessarily just Canadians, as we well know. So, yeah, for me, I mean, when I started, I figured it was a calling. I figured it was my duty. I think it was my moral obligation. And it's nice to wake up almost every morning and say, I'm up because I want to and fulfill my mission statement to teach and empower people to understand the benefits of an honest financial system or an honest monetary system. It doesn't mean you even need government. I mean, if you go back to when money worked as precious metals, and I'm not saying that's a solution, I'm just going into history. You know, if you go back and look at when we circulated gold, silver, and copper, why did the loaf of bread stay the same price for 100 years? Because you had monetary stability. And the banks are only there as warehouses. You know, yeah, they made loans and all that, but it's morphed into this system of control, as we've already discussed ad infinitum. So you can have a foot in and a foot out, so to speak. You can be with your bank account or part of it, and you can also be in cryptos. You can be in precious metals. You can be in a business, but that's usually tied to the state in one way, shape, or form. But at least if you have proven wealth that's, again, not a liability of somebody else, you've got some security, especially if the system resets. I just did an interview where I was the interviewer of Keith Weiner of Monetary Metals yesterday. It'll be up on my website probably within a week or so. And I asked him at the end of the interview, which way does this thing go? And I told him, I asked him, you know, give me the worst case and the best case. And the worst case is what we've already outlined here. And the best case was basically going back to putting gold back into the monetary system. I mean, there is 6 billion ounces of gold on the planet. It is coveted by humans for thousands of years. And if we priced it correctly or valued it properly, it would provide some stability in the system. Is that the solution? Am I gold's the answer? No, I am not. Honesty in the system is the answer, and freedom in the system is the answer. Those are the answers. But gold is impartial, and it's sort of an escrow account, if you will, that has no dog in the fight. An ounce of gold is the same anywhere in the universe, as I've said many times. And if you're willing to provide, you know, a month's worth of labor for 1 ounce of gold, and you both agree on that contract, so be it. And when you are paid, your contract is fulfilled. But, you know, it's money. It's real money. I look at it, you know, I've studied money my whole life. I mean, I've even in the chapter, sorry, I'm digressing briefly. The last chapter in the Silver Manifesto was all about what's the future of money, right? And didn't have it. I don't think cryptos were even available back then when I wrote that chapter. But what I was putting out to the public or my readership was, you know, maybe there's something better than the current system. I don't know. I'm open to that idea, or I question the current system. But right now, it's been going the wrong way. I mean, who wants to be? Some do. I mean, some people just absolutely want to know every step of their, you know, of their day and just be fed, not have to work, just get a universal basic income and help the planet because they're only using so much carbon and on that goes. But those are the exceptions. Those aren't the rule. Most people that have tasted freedom really realize that it's priceless. You can't put a price of gold or silver or wheat on being free.
So let's wrap up with this on the positive. One of the I'm really optimistic right now about how many people are waking up. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
more they push these insane things, like some random lady in Canada donating $50 to the truckers, and getting her bank frozen, the more people that have no interest in these types of conversations, just as a natural self-protective mechanism, an unconscious seeking to preserve one's own security and freedom, go, and then you said, well, the next move up in metals will be out of fear, right? And this goes back to this, to a human beings that has any level of working brain cells, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their views on the world, they look back and they go, and then this causes this move in fear, or this natural inclination towards self-preservation moves people further and further outside of the system. And in a lot of ways, it's it's inspiring to me. I didn't tell you before, but my wife's pregnant right now with number 2. And so when I look at everything, there was a time, last year I was very anxious and very concerned. And while I still have a lot of those concerns, I'm swaying a lot more towards optimism, because whether you see El Salvador stepping out of the system, or just ordinary citizens kind of going, hey, something isn't right here, with these big swats from the powers that want to be, as you call them. In a lot of ways, to me, it's an example of this great awakening, right? That's been referred to. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, I was in China. I mean, Hong Kong, I don't count as China. I love Hong Kong. I don't think I'll ever go back. But when I was in Beijing and the surrounding area, there's an expression there. I don't speak Mandarin, but it is, the emperor is very far away. So no matter what the governmental structure is, when you're out in the rural community, basically they don't pay much attention to government. Now that will change with the dog tag that everybody carries with them, meaning your smartphone. But there are lots of indicators that it's far from settled. And the idea being that it doesn't take a lot to push back. I mean, if the law as it stands is something that we really should hold dear. And if it were adjudicated the way it should be, then we would have the ability to bring things back and more toward the center, because the law is supposed to be impartial. The problem is, as Jefferson outlined, I don't have a quote, but if you lose the judicial branch, if it gets corrupted, you basically lost it. But that doesn't mean you've lost it at the local level. You might lose it in Superior Court, and the court above it does rule correctly or whatever. And so the point is that there are people that are learning how to represent themselves without the Bar Association going to court, state the facts, and win. And truth is all powerful. As you know, I've said many times, there's nothing more powerful than the truth. So I think there is a lot of hope, because if you go to the founding of the U.S., you'll find that it wasn't the majority. It wasn't 51% that we don't want the British rule. It was only a few percent that enlightened, awakened, or we'll call it again, the Great Awakening took place. And remember, when Patrick Henry was in that building and talked about, what's going on outside and what the British are doing and what his stance was, he never told anybody to take up a rifle and defend everything that they're, with the whole of their being, for freedom. He said, as for you gentlemen, I do not know. So he's giving them off the hook. I can't tell you what to do, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And when he said that, and I wasn't there, it's in the history books, I believe it, that stirred a passion within the human system that will be recognized forever if the history books don't get changed. And that's the kind of thing that you're alluding to. And is it there? Absolutely. I mean, you look at some of these youngsters, I call them youngsters because they're my age, but Patel Patriot, yourself, Jake Ducey, Rodriguez, Chris Sky. I mean, on and on. Look at these men and women. Look at Mel K. Look at these people that are willing to speak truth to power. There's nothing more powerful than the truth, and we're doing it left, right. We're doing it more every day. So am I optimistic? You bet I am. I don't want to leave this planet without saying, yeah, even win, lose, or draw, we gave it our all, and it is not determined yet. Yes, I outlined what they want. That's pretty accurate, but that doesn't mean they're going to achieve.
David Morgan, interesting times to be alive. Anything else that I missed that you want to wrap up with?
No, maybe a little bit. Just there's a lot of free information. Just go to the website, themorganreport.com. Get on my email list. I'm getting more and more pressure from the system as far as what channels I use. Twitter hasn't given me too much pushback, but I have on YouTube. So if you're on my email list, you always have access. And I am on alternative platforms, and I can't name them all. My webmaster takes care of that. But some of I'm not BitChute, I guess, maybe. I know it was Odyssey, but he said they changed the name. But anyway, if you're on my mailing list, I'll be able to send you information that click here. You can hear my uncensored thoughts for free. A lot of this stuff I do for free because I'm here. My main purpose is to wake up and shake up as many people and get them on track as far as what's really important in the human experience. And yeah, money is very important. It touches all of our lives. And that's why I took that track. But I took that track so I could reach everybody. I didn't take that track because I wanted more money than everybody else. I want us all to be secure. I want us all to thrive. And I know that's possible. It's just under the current conditions, it's being taken away from us. So more and more power is set in less and less hands, which is the opposite of natural law, completely the opposite.
So we want to thank everyone for listening. We're going to link David's website right there down below. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. Give us a comment right there down below for the good old-fashioned YouTube algorithm. Let's send this video out into the YouTube universe. More people see it. Give us a comment right there down below. Let us know one thing you're grateful for, optimistic about, excited about, feeling good about right now. Make sure you hit the subscribe, bell notification, all that good stuff. Bell notification is what notifies you for videos. So even if you're subscribed, double check you hit the bell notification. And I want to thank you for coming on today, David.
Jay, congratulations. I got one more here at the very end. So congratulations on child number 2. And yours truly is going to be a grandpa for the first time.
All right. Congrats, David. That's awesome.
Applaud for myself. I'm very, very excited.
Awesome, David. All right. Well, it's good to see you, my friend.
Okay. Thank you very much.